back to Girl Take the Lead, the podcast where we explore the real, raw, and remarkable stories of people breaking cycles, finding freedom, and leading with courage. And I'm your host, Jeovanny. Today's special guest is Michelle Jeovanny, a renowned spiritual life coach, mentor, channel, and successful entrepreneur devoted to helping individuals create wealth on all levels spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, energetically, and financially. With her unique blend of spiritual magic, ancestral healing, and somatic wisdom, Michelle helps people awaken their divine blueprint, turning wounds into power and reclaiming the abundance that already lives within all of us. In this episode, Michelle and I dive into the alchemy of healing, exploring how the stories passed down through our lineage shape our beliefs about wealth, worth, and identity. You'll hear Michelle's extraordinary story of spiritual awakening, including a life changing moment at sea that helped her to embrace her gifts as a channel and healer. In today's conversation, we talk about the meaning of ancestral wealth and how to awaken it within, transforming pain, grief, and limitation into creative power. The body as our first bank account, the true source of abundance. How stillness, surrender, and sacred witnessing opens us up to healing. And why money is the byproduct of who we become, not the measure of our worth. Michelle reminds us that the greatest inheritance we carry isn't just our history, it's our capacity to heal it. And that every wound holds wisdom waiting to be turned into power. Let's jump in. Here you go. Michelle, welcome to Girl Take the Lead. How fun is this
Well,
conversation going to be?
thank you. I'm so excited. Let's jump in.
Yeah. So let's start, if you would, to introduce yourself to the viewers and listeners. That would be a good place to start.
Absolutely. My name is Michelle Jeovanny. I'm a spiritual life and business coach, a spiritual facilitator. I facilitate retreats and leadership trainings that really have people go into the alchemy of their wounds, turning their pain into power, moving through ancestral patterns that may be blocking their wealth. And that's really what my work is rooted in, awakening wealth on all levels, having men and women, but especially women, really return to their original blueprint of feeling and calling in the wealth that truly sets them free in their lives.
Mhm. So let's talk a little bit about ancestral wealth. And you mentioned some of the blocks that we might have there to keep us from healing and moving forward. What do you see there?
Yeah. There's so many layers to this because when it comes to the ancestral wealth is really what I see beyond the wounds. There is this creative intelligence that once we surrender to the power, the alchemy behind those wounds, that's where your gifts and a lot of your boons. It's a word that's about gifts in spirituality in the Hindu tradition that you start to kind of like unpack all these layers,
Mhm.
and it's like this onion that has gold in this inside. When you start to really surrender and stop resisting these stories that you tell yourself or that you've been told about who you are, where you come from, your story of origin, your history. A lot of it has many lies, and
Mhm.
not lies like the history didn't happen, but there's a certain objective, there's an agenda to you believing a certain narrative about yourself and where you come from that has you believe in the biggest lie there is, which is scarcity. And
Mhm.
so when women and men really step into owning their story and understanding the blueprint, their divine design, who and what they are, they start to awaken the truth, which is we are here to create beyond our wildest imagination. We're here to command wealth, to command our reality, not like you're playing God in a bubble where
Mhm.
you become really narcissistic and think you get to call it all the shots, but it's about understanding that you have power here, that you are power, that you are God's power, and that you're here to co-create with spirit in ways that you can't even fathom yet. So we
Mhm.
start by creating wealth from truth, wealth from a strong body, from a healthy mind, from emotions that are rooted in truth.
Mhm.
And a lot of people have grown up in societies that have been cut off from the ancestral wealth that runs through their DNA. They've been taught history that is has been fabricated
Mhm.
and has been manipulated to have us believe that we're cut off from the source, when in reality, the source of all abundance and wealth lives within us as a current that is seeking to be activated and to be honored, to be a co creator with you.
Mhm. When you think about or talk about wealth, most people will go to money, having money. But I don't think you're talking about that. You're talking about wealth that has to do with, as you said, abundance, but it could be just a non monetary kind of, well, like joy, having joy in your life or something like that. Did I get that right?
I'm talking about wealth on all levels. So, mental, emotional, physical. It
Mhm.
absolutely has to do with the material, the financial freedom. It also has to do with spiritual and energetic. When you are wealthy on all levels, you cannot help but to be a magnet to wealth, because you start to honor yourself in such a way that has you open up the faucet even more. It opens up the
Mhm.
channel and you start to command financial freedom, absolutely. But you also start to command the riches that money can't buy.
Yeah.
And when people are operating from that frequency where my life is a masterpiece, I am in love with every aspect of who I am. I am in love with my life, despite the contrast, despite the circumstances and the challenges. I am absolutely in love with what I'm creating because I know who I am, I know where I come from, and I know where I'm going. And so every step becomes this like Alice in Wonderland, where you are just on this great adventure with you in spirit. And it is only you in spirit in this reality. Everyone else is playing a role in who you get to become, but that can only be decided by you. I decide who
Mhm.
I am, I decide who I become. And in that, I root myself into becoming an offering to this world where I'm creating from this belief that I have something unique to give to the world, that I have something unique, a unique role to play here. And then the world, the universe starts mirroring that. And before you know it, your life starts transforming. You
Mm.
start to release debt, money starts coming in, opportunities start knocking on your door, and you realize, okay, there's more to it, because money, one of my mentors, Melanie, says money is the byproduct of who we become. And I love
Mhm.
that saying because it really symbolizes it so perfectly. It's not about the things that we buy with money. If
Mhm.
we make that the focus, then we'll always be chasing money and we'll never be satisfied, irrespective of how much or how little we have. But if we make the focus of who we are becoming, then money starts to become this effect to the cause of who you are being and how you're leading yourself and how you're honoring yourself and what you have to offer here.
Mhm. So, what got you on this path, and when did that happen for you? You mean you are probably one of the most spiritual people I've had in my 260 episodes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And how did that happen? Like, how did that happen for you?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I wanna say is I feel far from the most spiritual person on this planet. Because when I think of the most spiritual person, I think Eckhart Tolle or,
Mhm,
you
yeah.
know, the Dalai Lama, which there's just so much reverence in that presence and stillness, and I'm still working on my presence and stillness. But I feel that spirituality is like the relationship you have with yourself and God, that you can be so free within your skin, that you can be yourself fully and unapologetically. And I have ways to go to get there fully. But thank you. I received that. For me, it started at a very young age. I had
Mm,
a very strong connection to the spirit world. And for a very long time, Yolanda, I thought I was going crazy. I thought that I needed to hide. The very first person I told was my grandmother when I was 5 or 6 years old. And she was like, shh, we don't say that. And I still have that memory imprinted because what I've learned is that I come from a lineage of priestesses, women that were herbal healers and could were energy healers, but they hid it because they
mm,
didn't want to. They were raised in a time, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, they were raised in a time when women were seen as a threat. They were
mhm.
harmed for being this way. They were shunned. And so the very first person that was like my first source of belonging, my grandmother, was like, shh, we don't say this. We don't
Yeah.
say this to anybody, or you're gonna be sent to the crazy house. And and so I just made up this notion like, okay, I'm crazy. And a lot of women have that belief that, like, we're crazy if we feel too much, if we allow ourselves to be wild in our expression, in our authenticity, in our range of our expression, that something's wrong with us, that we're crazy. And so I hid that part of me for a very long time until I couldn't hid it anymore. I literally was flung from the spiritual closet and it happened. It was such a divine spiritual appointment, Yolanda. It was on our very first retreat. And I've
Mhm.
never shared this story on a podcast before, but I was in the middle of the ocean and I had all these people that flew into Dominican Republic for our very first retreat. And the boat flipped in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, God.
And about 2 minutes before the boat flipped, the energy of the first being that ever came to me was the ocean, Yemaya, the ocean goddess. And sh- everything in our world is alive, everything. And so the spirit of the ocean arised from the ocean, and she wanted me to channel her, and I didn't know what she was talking about. Channel her? What do you mean? So I was like, just tell me the message and I'll deliver it. And I said the message, and the message was along these lines. I am not gonna remember it exactly, but it was like, your thoughts are prayers, and they're magnified through the water. And so when you're in the water, she has you surrender to her, but be careful what you think,
Mm,
because every thought is a prayer. And I said it, and I knew that something was gonna happen. So my heart was beating super fast, and within seconds, the boat flipped. And it was the first time I had to really, like, plead. So I remember being so upset with spirit, with God. I was like, listen, I will come out of this closet. I will explain everything. I will tell them everything. But you return all of their belongings. You pull a miracle on this ocean. You get us saved. And within minutes, we had a rescue boat gather us. But here's where it got really, like, woo. As we're getting on this rescue boat, because we're all holding onto this boat that was flipped, we're getting on this rescue boat. A lot of the participants had their passports, their phone, everything was underwater. And
mm,
weight, something that's heavy just sinks. And so I told Spirit, this is where you get to, like, show yourself. And all the things, as we're on this boat, driving by the boat, started bloop, 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 showing up. Everything was returned. Everything.
oh, God.
And I just started to
What
weep
a
and sob.
what an awakening.
I remember
Yeah.
telling them, because there was one participant that said, how did you know? because what you said was what kept us all calm. How did you know? And that's when I came out of the closet and I shared and I channeled for them.
I just think that is, well, so amazing that you let that through you and you shared that with the people who were at risk. And I think people don't realize that we all have intuitive gifts
Absolutely.
and we can all work on them. We can all fine tune them.
Mhm.
Um, Perhaps some of them hit us over a head like yours did. Like, time, time, girlfriend. This is it. You're on. Um,
Mm.
but I think what you're giving to all of us is this opportunity to see it for ourselves too, that we have those things inside of us.
I really believe with all my heart that we're all channels of God,
Mhm.
Goddess, and that we're not only connected to spirit, source, but source gives us this counsel of guides and ancestors that look after us.
Mhm.
And we come into this world with a team that is here to create with you and be with you and guide you. And at times when you look at the state of the world, stillness, presence is something that we have to deeply work at. We have to cultivate it
Yeah.
because there's so much programming and conditioning that takes us out of presence. It takes
Yeah.
us out of the stillness. It creates chaos and distraction and confusion. And a lot of people are actually really comfortable there, being cut off from that source.
Yeah. Well, I think your work on ancestral healing is so important for us because we don't notice that we're stuck or that we're just playing out something that was passed down to us through the women and for example in my family, one after another. um and to shift that, you have to be able to see it.
Mhm, mhm. Ancestral healing is fascinating, and it also came into my life when I was deep in a surrender experiment with God because I was going through this fertility grief. I When I turned 34, I wanted to become a mom. And during the pandemic, a couple years later, my period stopped. And I was experiencing a lot of perimenopausal early symptoms, like really early in the mid 30s. And
Mhm.
so when I was told by 12 doctors that I couldn't conceive, I just fell into this deep grief because
Mhm.
I couldn't understand God's plan. Why? And it's been really beautiful because I kicked and screamed. I resisted it. I didn't want to surrender. I didn't want to believe it. I was in this portal of denial and anger. I was so angry at God. And ancestral healing, when a woman's going through such a perimenopausal awakening, but also losing that ability to conceive, my partner and I were really going through it. And so I was determined that I was just gonna exit this this relationship and I was just gonna leave him. And but I was very jaded. I was very angry, and ancestral healing came into my lap because in Brazil, for example, and this was the stat that really had my attention. In Brazil, you're not allowed to get a divorce until you do a family constellation, until you meet with an ancestral healer. And that was fascinating to me. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. And so I wanted to make sure that I did everything I could in terms of my own inner work before I left my husband. And what ended up happening is that that work brought us closer and it had me see a lot of the patterns that I was repeating from my grandmothers, from aunts, and my mom. And when I could see it, which is what's so beautiful about ancestral healing, and it's the only branch of all of healing that allows you to see the unconscious turn to conscious. You can actually
Mhm.
see the patterns, the vows that you have moved out of loyalty to your family that have been keeping you looping certain things.
Mm.
You'll see women that create a lot of success but aren't able to hold it. They'll call in a lot of money, but for some reason they can't hold it. They're repeating a lot of patterns. Or maybe there's ancestors in their lineage that want to be honored, that want to process certain emotions and certain loops, because they're all seeking to complete their ending through you, through your expansion and evolution. But sometimes, because the subconscious can become loyal to a family vow, it'll repeat certain patterns until you're able to break the pattern for yourself
Yeah.
and for your lineage.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fascinating.
it will, it definitely got, I mentioned to you earlier that I was working with Francis Weller's book on grief and the idea of ancestral grief coming through the line. And I think some of these patterns, the way in which we're protected, like your grandmother telling you, shh, she's trying to protect you. There's the ways that they've learned to survive that don't don't have to happen today. Like we can shift it, we can change it. Um,
Grief is an emotion that a lot of our ancestors weren't allowed to feel and process, and they didn't even know how to,
mhm,
because a lot of our ancestors were immigrants. They migrated. They had to give up a lot of their authentic truth, their story, their narrative, their religion, their language. They had to give it up. They had to hide
mhm.
it in order to survive and to assimilate. And so, patterns that are rooted in survival
Yeah,
and that are rooted in being almost like married to this dogmatic way of believing life and world and politics and God and
mhm,
all the things. But it's because they find some form of safety in
yeah,
being married to those ideologies, because they had to give up a lot of their truth in order to survive. And
yeah,
so when we think of like the what we're seeing with the Jews in the Palestine, for example, and I never bring this up, but I feel called to. It's there's these two old religions, old people that are have been moving through life hiding who they are, hiding their origin, their stories, their rituals, their traditions in order to belong. And when you belong from a and this is generalizing, so I don't want this to upset your audience in any way, but I'm just pointing out this is universal for all of us. This isn't just about two specific races. But because we're now belonging, we're trying to control the version of us that was taught to belong at the cost of us being true, at the cost of us being authentic. It's not real belonging. She'll never feel like she belongs. So she has to hold on to something that she feels has given her safety, control up until this point in her life, or else it negates everything that she
yeah,
has taught herself to
yeah.
be.
No, I totally understand that and I have a lot of compassion for
Yeah.
her and for,
My mom, for example, I'll share this story. So my mom grew up in a generation where going to the shrink or the therapist or any outside help would have you be labeled in society as you're crazy. You're crazy. You're weak. You're crazy. There's something wrong with you. And so her daughter choosing a profession that is about mentorship and is about personal development and spiritual development, which is very similar to a kind of therapy, a kind of psychology. It's more like spiritual psychology, goes against everything she's believed in. And so it took us time to have boundaries and rework what she thought it was about. And after she saw what my work was truly about and how it supported her in actually softening and allowing her to be seen in her vulnerability and her edges and what she's moving through, but she's still very married to what she believes. We were able to now create this opening
Yeah.
where she has tremendous respect for my work. But
Yeah.
for the first 13 out of the 17 years, I was receiving so much uh, condescending jokes and passive aggressive remarks, until she was able to open her own belief system around what it is that I do.
Yeah. Does she see that you honor your ancestors now?
She sees, so when she comes into my office, she sees my altar and she is just like bewildered because my mom raised us very atheist. Like she didn't believe in God. And so
Mhm.
she's just like, where did you learn all this? How did you, like, I never raised you. Like, she looks at my altar and just like, what is happening here?
That's so great though that you're finding your own way, right? I mean,
I think that's true for all of us.
yeah.
All of us we're rewriting our own way. We're finding out who we truly are.
Yeah.
And I just did this master class where I was telling them about how women in the ancient times were considered properties. They were
Mhm.
property. And the most valuable proposition to this property was that she would only mirror what they thought she had to be.
Mm.
So she had to forget who she was. And so I was saying this to this class where it's like, women are a mystery. We're a question mark, dot, dot, dot. We are always becoming, we're always evolving, we're always rewriting the identity of who we are becoming. And the moment you think you meet yourself, if you hold on to that identity, you're going to create suffering.
Yeah.
As women, we're here to evolve and shapeshift and continue to go deeper into the ocean of this great mystery.
Well, I could just listen to you for hours. I'm sure our listeners and viewers can as well. I mean, we've talked about, is there anything more about the patterns and beliefs that you want to share with them just a bit? Because those are the things, like I get at them myself by writing. Like I'll journal, I'll just pull and just start whatever is coming up. What else? I mean, do you see there for those of us who are open to exploring these
Yeah, this is
patterns and beliefs?
this is such a great question. I think the most important thing to really take from this conversation is that seeing our pattern requires work. It
Mhm.
requires a willingness to be witnessed and to enter a relationship with yourself where you're holding sacred space, but you're also having a guide with you that can also hold space for your blind spots.
Mhm.
A lot of our programming, our conditioning is the very waters that we're swimming in. And so we can do a lot of work and we can learn the language and we can learn what to say and how to speak it. But to be able to truly embody it requires sacred witnessing, someone that will support you in holding space. This is
Mhm.
why ChatGPT will never replace us. But one of the two practices that I highly recommend, especially for women, and men can do this too, this is such a great practice, is the practice of stillness. So you can lie on the floor and allow yourself to breathe as you're scanning your body from your feet to your head, and you go really slowly. And you're bringing this presence, this awareness through your body, but you're allowing yourself to relax. And after a few minutes, I would say 7 to 10 minutes, your body does this thing where you feel it open and
Mhm.
blossom and relax even deeper. The second go around, when you do it again, when you start scanning your body again, I want you to ask your body, show me, what does wealth feel like in my body? What does wealth on all levels feel like in my body? And what we forget is that our body is the first bank account. It is our altar of wealth and abundance, and the body will show you what it feels like. And so your job is to presence that throughout your body, that energy, and really allow it to come alive. The third time you do it, and you ask your body, show me what it looks like and feels like to be truly wealthy on all levels.
Mhm.
And now it's going to amplify the feeling, but it's going to give you visuals, desires, things that you're calling in. And then a great practice to go along with this one, the second one, is to write down all of your desires. What do you truly desire? What do you long for? And a lot of women judge what we desire. We don't allow ourselves to fully claim it. And so spending time when you're writing it out and you're expressing it on pages and pages of paper, I recommend 3 pages, will support you in getting really clear on your desires. And then you ask yourself, well, what are the beliefs that are in the way of these desires?
Mhm.
Why do I believe that I need to work for this? Why do I believe I need to earn this? Why do I believe I'm not worthy of this? And then you write those down in a separate paper. And you just say in a prayer, Spirit, I'm entering a deeper, intimate relationship with you. I know that you speak through the desires that you placed in my heart. I know it's not about the desires, but about who I become on this journey of becoming a frequency to this, of match to these desires. You burn the paper of all the beliefs
Mhm.
that are in the way and you say it out loud. I'm releasing all of these. I'm stepping into a higher relationship, a higher form of leading, a higher form of serving. May this be an offering that as I go after my desires, may it be an offering to the world
Mhm.
that everyone gets to benefit from me stepping into these desires.
Mhm. So cool.
And then you're going to notice so many things shift.
Yeah, I would imagine. Oh, that's such a great process. Um, I think it's something that, we can all do uh, to really uncover some of those beliefs. Because people sometimes think, oh, I can just sit down and write them out. I think it takes a little bit of work to really get at them and to see, okay, that's not mine. That came
Mhm.
from somebody else. I can let go of that one. I
Yeah.
don't need that one anymore. It served me perhaps at a time, but I don't need it anymore.
And letting go can be so easy. I think
Mhm.
we complicate it as humans, myself included, where we get attached to the outcome, m- the desires coming in a very specific way. And so then we get attached and we get attached. And so I feel like the moment you surrender to spirit in that conversation and you deepen in that practice of being intimate with spirit, you start to open up this source field
Mhm.
where things just start coming in different ways that you didn't expect. And I invite people to say that in their prayers, spirit surprised me in ways beyond my comprehension.
Mhm.
Because if we can move past the mental constraints, the things that we think need to show up in a very specific way, then we open up all of our doors and windows to our house to have spirit come through in so many different ways.
Mhm. Well, my darling, how can our viewers and listeners get more of you, follow you, and tell us about your book that's going to be coming?
Yes. Yes. My book is called When Wounds Howl, and it's gonna come next year. It's coming out next year. I'm signing finally the contract with the publisher next week. But it's about 3 generations that are all the eldest daughters of their generation, and they are starting to realize how their stories intertwine, the patterns that are being passed down, the inheritance that they didn't ask
Mhm.
for. But it's a beautiful story about ancestral healing, and more so what I'm doing is taking on a lot of the work that teachers and elders before me did around the core wounds, the 10 core wounds, and having people really get there's nothing wrong with us.
Mhm.
The wounds have power, there's a creative intelligence behind them, and when you surrender to the alchemy of those wounds, your life takes on a whole new blueprint. You activate your entire blueprint of why you're here and what you have to offer.
Mhm.
Um, but if people want to find me, I on my website, there's tons of different ways. I do a monthly channeling for free. It's at magicmysteryschool.com, magic with a K at the end, MAGICK, mysteryschool.com. And that's every month, once a month. But you can also go into my social media, and if they tell me they're from Yolanda's crew, I will gift them with a PDF on how to create with AI with Soul. So there's
Mm.
so many different ways from my website to my social media. It's all my name, Michelle Jeovanny.
Okay. So we heard a little bit about your early 20s, but what advice or what would you say to your 20 something self today?
I would tell her to relax, to
Mm.
chill the F out, and to just really fall in love with her life.
Mm.
I wish I could have told myself that 1,000 times. I was so busy trying to become someone
Mm.
without realizing that I was already someone all along. And so I would tell her, you are it, girl. You just get to love your life, love who you are, and be busy falling in love with every moment.
Yeah. Well, and just seeing your beautiful life right now, I can imagine if you could have shown her, like, look at this great path we're going to be on. You aren't going to believe it. It's going to be so incredible. So during my 20s, I was achieve, 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 achieve. It was like, don't get married. Achieve, 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 achieve. Don't get married. That was kind of what came through the line for me. And I got parts of me, huge parts
Mm.
of me, that were like, oh man, this is so magical and so wonderful. And look at you stepping out, doing these great things by yourself. I mean, just go, girl, go, girl. But I think
Yeah.
it was the go, girl, that scarcity concern that I needed to really do work on because it was push, 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 push. And definitely living out other people's vision of what wealth would look like,
Yeah.
and didn't realize that I was just on that, like, that path that I just didn't even think about. It's like, just keep going, yo, just keep going. No, whew, let's jump
I
off that.
I feel like I was running towards success, but the more I ran towards it in my 20s, the further I felt from it.
Mm,
And also the more I was running away from myself.
mm,
And so it was such a big shift in my 30s, in my late 30s, to be honest. And it was really the gift of fertility that had me stop the madness and
yeah,
realize, oh no, this is not the version of success that I want.
yeah. Well, I know we could talk forever and we are out of time, but
Mhm.
thank you so much for coming on the show and being with us and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such an honor speaking with you. I feel like I could talk to you
I
forever.
know. Me too. It's like, let's go for a couple more hours.
Yeah.
Um, but thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you too. Thank you to all listeners too.
What a powerful and illuminating conversation with Michelle, right? Oh, God. A guide who reminds us that wealth begins not in our wallets, but in our wholeness. Her story invites us to see that what we once viewed as broken may actually be gold, the creative intelligence within our wounds. If today's episode resonated with you, you can connect with Michelle, and we have all her detail in the show notes. And as a special gift to our listeners, Michelle is offering a free PDF, How to Create with AI with Soul. Just mention the podcast when you reach out to her to receive your copy. Here are 3 takeaways from today's conversation. 1, true wealth is a frequency, an embodied state of alignment between who we are and how we serve. 2, ancestral healing helps us see the patterns we've inherited and lovingly release what no longer serves us. And 3, when we surrender to spirit, we open to possibilities beyond our comprehension. And that's where transformation begins. As always, thank you for listening, for sharing these stories, and for walking alongside me on this journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please follow the podcast, leave a review, or share it with someone who would love hearing stories about women leading with courage and heart. Next week, we'll be joined by Lori Pappas, a remarkable humanitarian, entrepreneur, and author whose journey embodies resilience and empowerment. From being one of the first female computer representatives in the world to founding a charitable organization in Africa that's impacted over 100,000 lives, Lori has been a beacon of inspiration, using her experiences to uplift others and mentor countless individuals. We'll talk about her book, The Magic of Yes, Embrace the Wise Woman Within, and have the pleasure of hearing Lori read directly from it, sharing her dream framework and the wisdom she's gathered from saying yes to life's greatest lessons. Until then, take care of your heart. Lead with courage, and remember, we got this. Talk soon. Bye.